We're here this afternoon to inform you about a New South Wales joint counterterrorism investigation where we executed a search warrant this morning in Albury, and we've arrested an 18-year-old male. That male we expect will be charged later on today with advocating terrorism and also inciting others to commit acts of violence against the community. The male that we've arrested has an extreme right-wing ideology and is focused on neo-Nazi, white supremacist and anti-Semitic material. For the Joint Counterterrorism Team, we don't target ideologies, we target criminality and investigate criminality to ensure that we keep the public safe. The arrest today is also consistent with previous comments both Mark and I have said, and our counterterrorism colleagues around the country, around what we've seen throughout COVID with the move to the online environment and what that has meant for us in terms of our threat environment nationally. The male who we've arrested this morning, he has been accessing and engaging with others through social media platforms, where he has been accessing extreme right-wing material, and that has also included bomb-making materials, which he has sought to provide to others as part of his activities to urge others to commit terrorist acts and violence against community members. The decision to arrest today was made as a result of an escalation that we saw in this male's online behaviour, which continued up until this morning, and that was why we made the decision that we did to go overt, to ensure that we could do all that we could to protect the public from any risk of violence, whether from this individual or from others in terms of these acts. Noting though that we have no evidence and no information that he was only acting alone. This was only occurring in the online environment. So I might leave it there and pass over to Mark for any comments Mark's got, and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I'd just reiterate the fact that here in New South Wales, the Joint Counterterrorism Team is very vigilant in its investigative activities to detect and now disrupt, as we have today, those engaged in extremist activity and those with an interest of violence here in New South Wales. Extremists are of a variety of different types. That makes no difference to the police in their investigative activities, and we will continue to target people as we have done today and bring them before the courts where appropriate.
What risk was there?
Oh, look, there's always a risk of escalation. So when we see people that are engaged online, their comments are attributed to their ideology, they're essentially a hate and a disengagement from the norms of society, there is always a risk that they will move from conversation, albeit online, to other actions. A risk in this instance that people are connected and urging each other to explore their corrupt ideology and act on it.
Had an attack of some sort been planned?
Nothing specific, no.
How does an 18-year-old, someone so young, develop these sorts of views?
Yeah, look, there's certainly a lot of research and a rich history, particularly in Europe and the US, of young people moving towards these ideologies. I think in simple terms it's around they're looking for a cause, they're looking for an identity, looking for something to connect to. I used the term before, they're disengaged from the mainstream society. They're hero worshipping people that we would suggest in history should be forgotten. They're not hero worshipping, our best sports people or achievers in society. That's a very, negative, detrimental element and a common theme that exists in this extremist environment.
What sort of acts of violence was he advocating, and against what sort of targets?
Look, I'd use the term almost anyone that didn't look like him, but more specifically it's non-whites, it's immigrants, it's people of the Jewish and Islamic faith. Really that term, I hate everyone that doesn't fit my identity.
And what sorts of acts was he advocating?
Look, just general acts of violence. I mean, a variety of words that I think will be best left at this stage to be brought towards the court, but certainly comments that we are satisfied were urging violence against others.
Were these boys, and I mean, I use that, he's 18, but were these boys' family members aware that he held these views?
It's difficult for us to make comment on that.
What kind of social media platforms was he using? As a standard Facebook, Twitter, or is it?
There was a number of social media platforms were being used. There were a couple of closed groups that were also had been put in place by this individual. But in terms of the actual platforms themselves, we don't particularly want to comment on that at this time. That remains subject to the ongoing investigation.
Was it Facebook, Twitter, and those mainstream ones?
They were generally mainstream applications that are available to the community. Some of which were encrypted.
And say that he was engaging with other individuals. Were any of those individuals in Australia? Were they overseas? Are we likely to see more arrests?
That'll be part of the ongoing investigation. As you know, with individuals that are in these chat groups, it can be hard. It's very difficult to identify where they are and where they're based in the world. We've had that experience here with previous investigations we've undertaken here in New South Wales. That when we've actually undertaken inquiries, we've identified and disrupted other activity in Europe, for example, as a result of the operations we've undertaken here.
In what way had his behaviour escalated? And you mentioned right up until this morning. Was he posting messages right up until an hour before he was arrested, or the morning he was arrested? What actually?
Certainly,
we've
been investigated. This investigation commenced back in August. And that's been part of what we've been undertaking through the Joint Counterterrorism team, which also involves what we've been observing online. A couple of days ago, what we observed was an escalation in the tone, which went to a support of a mass casualty event and potentially his involvement in that event. And then there was a post, I think, up until in the very early hours of this morning, which actually expressed support for a previous mass casualty shooting that had occurred internationally.